You are experiencing a gradual collapse. Not of the body. Your heart still functions. Your lungs still breathe. But something essential, your most real, capable, and independent self, is being quietly suppressed. It happens slowly, one interaction at a time, one polite agreement after another. You are being constrained by an unseen force, the expectations of others. They believe you should already be married. They believe you should have a secure career. They think you speak too little or too much, that you aim too high or not high enough. And because you fear the discomfort that follows their disapproval, you comply. You adjust. You bend yourself to fit standards that were never designed for you. Over time, you become a performer in a script you did not create, repeating lines you do not support, for an audience that is indifferent to your well-being. Niccolò Machiavelli, one of history's most misunderstood thinkers, understood this pattern clearly. He recognized that the human mind seeks approval, fears rejection, and avoids isolation. But he also identified the solution. Many believe Machiavelli wrote about ruling nations. In reality, he wrote about mastering circumstances. And his first principle is uncompromising. If you do not govern yourself, others will do it for you. There is no compromise here. The inner world is not democratic. You either control your own mind, or you function under someone else's authority. Today, we will dismantle the need for approval that has been reinforced since childhood. We will examine Machiavellian philosophy, not as a tool for controlling people, but as a method for preventing control over you. What follows are 7 principles designed to move you from constant accommodation to personal authority. This material is not reassuring. It is not designed for comfort. It is protective. Once you recognize the systems shaping your behavior, you cannot ignore them. You may lose relationships. You may disappoint relatives. You may be described as distant or self-centered. And for the first time, those labels will no longer determine your actions. Freedom requires eliminating the part of you that seeks acceptance at any cost. We begin with the core misconception. You were taught that goodness equals agreement, that morality means placing others before yourself, and that self-denial is virtuous. This belief system produces compliance, not strength. Machiavelli observed, "A man who wishes to practice goodness in all situations will come to ruin among those who do not." If you insist on pleasing everyone, you place yourself at a disadvantage. The world does not operate on fairness alone. People are driven by personal interest, status, and security. When you prioritize their comfort over your boundaries, you expose yourself unnecessarily. You believe sacrifice earns loyalty. It does not. People accept what you give, then demand more. When your capacity is depleted, they move on. This is not pessimism. It is human behavior observed repeatedly. People tend to be unreliable, changeable, and motivated by advantage. While you provide value, you are supported. When cost appears, support disappears. This is not opinion. It is pattern recognition. Review your own experiences. Consider how often you agreed against your better judgment. Did it generate respect, or simply create expectation? When you center your life on others, you define your worth by availability. You teach people that your limits are negotiable and your time expendable. Machiavellian thinking begins with understanding that morality without authority becomes submission. Real virtue includes the ability to refuse. It includes tolerance for disapproval. This does not mean harming others. It means refusing to be passive. Kindness should be selective, not indiscriminate. A leader protects resources. Your energy and attention are assets. Stop offering them to those who provide no return. Living deliberately requires examining who you serve and why. If the answer is fear of rejection, then you are not choosing, you are complying. Why is rejection so uncomfortable? Because humans evolved in groups. Exclusion once meant death. The brain still reacts to criticism as threat. Anxiety is the signal. Apologize. Adjust. Submit. But this is no longer survival. You are not at risk of starvation or attack because of disagreement. The danger is imagined, but the restraint it causes is real. You have constructed an internal audience. Every decision is reviewed by past teachers, peers, partners, colleagues, and abstract society. You pause, evaluate reactions, and wait for approval. Machiavelli advised removing the audience. Reputation is a strategic tool, not an emotional necessity. There is a difference between managing perception and seeking validation. One is deliberate. The other is dependency. When approval is required, control is lost. To live independently, you must dismiss the spectators. Most people are absorbed in their own concerns. Even when judgment exists, it has no physical power. An opinion cannot harm you. It is a neurological reaction in someone else's mind. Allowing it to shape your life is irrational. Machiavelli proposed indifference, not hostility, but detachment. You acknowledge input, adjust if useful, and proceed. Like weather, opinions may influence preparation, but not direction. You must become both creator and critic of your own life. External silence loses significance when internal standards are met. Machiavelli's most cited line is often misunderstood. It is safer to be feared than loved. Applied psychologically, this refers to respect, not intimidation. In modern terms, fear equals boundaries. Love equals likability. Many choose likability, believing it offers security. It does not. It removes definition. People respect clarity, not adaptability without limits. Respect comes from standards and the willingness to disengage. Presence must be optional, not guaranteed. When you fear abandonment, you surrender leverage. When you can walk away, the balance shifts. Those you respect are not endlessly agreeable. They are consistent. They say no. They protect their values. Their approval matters because it is rare. A life built on approval collapses when opinions change. A life built on self-respect endures. Disapproval is not failure. It is evidence of direction. If no one resists you, you are not defined. Resistance means boundaries exist. That is authority. Stop prioritizing niceness. Prioritize competence. Prioritize purpose. A clear mission renders both praise and criticism secondary. One final leak of power is unnecessary disclosure. Goals announced too early. Plans shared too widely. Problems broadcast for validation. Silence is often strength. You are losing energy. Each time you share your plans, you give others influence over them. You allow their uncertainty into your personal space. You say you want to start a business. Someone responds, "In this economy?" They mention a failure they know. Immediately, their fear becomes yours. You were moving forward and they added weight. Often, this does not come from hostility. It comes from concern. But the outcome is unchanged. Progress slows. Machiavelli understood the value of restraint. He knew a leader does not reveal a full strategy until action is already underway. Conflict cannot be avoided, only delayed, usually to someone else's advantage. In your life, that conflict is transformation. When you announce your intentions too early, you give resistance time to form. Those invested in the status quo prepare their objections. Living deliberately requires controlled silence. Protect your plans. Work quietly. There is a psychological effect known as social reality. When you tell someone what you plan to do, your brain releases dopamine. It creates a feeling of completion before effort begins, which reduces drive. There is also a deeper issue. When you live for others, conversation becomes a request for approval. You explain your choices so someone will agree with them. You want permission before you act. Stop justifying yourself. Explanations are not leadership tools. Leaders either state intent or take action. If you want to leave a job, do not seek advice from those unwilling to leave theirs. If you want to change your body, do not discuss discipline with people who avoid discomfort. Silence protects early ideas. It shields them from unnecessary criticism. It also creates uncertainty in others, which draws attention rather than resistance. More importantly, silence forces internal judgment. When external feedback is unavailable, you must rely on your own evaluation. At first, this is uncomfortable. The absence of validation feels unsettling. Remain there. That space develops self-trust. Machiavelli advised consulting others only after consulting yourself. Become opaque. Gather information. Observe. Plan. But do not reveal outcomes until they exist. Results end debate. Plans invite interference. The mind is now guarded. Next, the environment must be secured. Machiavelli warned against mercenaries and borrowed forces, those who serve temporarily or answer to others. They offer little loyalty. In calm periods, they take advantage. In crisis, they leave. Apply this to your relationships. Identify who only appears when you provide value. Notice who pulls you into conflicts that are not yours. Living independently requires reassessing alliances. This is where most people hesitate. Sentiment clouds judgment. They maintain ties based on history rather than alignment. They excuse manipulation because of familiarity. Machiavelli would ask whether history alone wins battles. It does not. Strength and strategy do. You cannot build a new direction using the same influences. Separation is required. Separation is painful by nature. It removes what once felt essential but is now harmful. Change will follow. Your tolerance for disrespect will decrease. Your interest in gossip will disappear. Complaints will lose appeal. This will unsettle people around you. They will say you have changed. They will mean it critically. Silence is the appropriate response. They are correct. You are no longer reinforcing their patterns. You are no longer supporting their stagnation. Walking alone is preferable to moving with resistance. Machiavelli wrote that a wise leader relies on what is his own, not what belongs to others. This refers to emotional independence. If people leave when boundaries appear, allow it. If family resists choices they do not understand, do not retreat. This is the cost of self-governance. Isolation is not punishment. It is filtration. Removing noise creates space for alignment. But first, you must tolerate emptiness. Many prefer false warmth over solitude with integrity. Choose the opposite. Cold preserves clarity. False closeness decays it. When you live for others, you steal from your future to satisfy present insecurity. Time is the only resource that cannot be recovered. Wealth, influence, relationships can return. Time cannot. Machiavelli focused heavily on timing, recognizing opportunity before it closes. Living for others wastes that window. Hours spent listening to complaints with no intent to change. Weekends lost to obligations with no meaning. Years committed to paths chosen by others. This is not politeness. It is self-erasure. Living deliberately requires strict control of time. To be ruthless means to act without regret. Learn to refuse without guilt. Requests that drain you, decline. Invitations that add nothing, decline. Demands for attention without value, decline. You do not need hostility. You need limits. A leader is not available to everyone. Access is controlled. Ask yourself why your attention is unguarded. Why do external demands enter your mental space so easily? Protect your time. When you do, you will be labeled selfish or distant. That is acceptable. Scarcity creates value. Constant availability removes it. Every agreement is a refusal elsewhere. Saying yes to distractions means rejecting progress, health, stability, and purpose. Machiavelli noted that excessive generosity weakens authority, while restraint preserves resources for meaningful action. Apply this to time. Accumulate it. Only with surplus can you invest in work that defines you. Living for yourself means recognizing limited duration. The clock is active. Do not let others control it. When you cut these ties, stop explaining, stop performing, stop wasting time, you enter a different state. Machiavelli called it virtue. Not moral goodness, but capability. Strength. The ability to impose order on uncertainty. You stop blaming others. You stop hiding behind expectation. You accept responsibility. This is uncomfortable because failure becomes personal. But this weight is also authority. Machiavelli wrote The Prince while exiled, stripped of position, isolated. By external standards, he had lost. Yet he worked privately, consistently. He created influence without permission. Your life functions the same way. What you build quietly defines what lasts. When approval is no longer the goal, long-term impact becomes possible. You train for strength, not appearance. You learn for mastery, not credentials. You create to express truth, not collect attention. This is freedom. A person who requires nothing from others cannot be controlled by them. Without dependence, manipulation fails. You become independent of incentives and immune to pressure. That is sovereignty. That is becoming the prince. Here is the central insight, the paradox Machiavelli understood and that many avoid acknowledging. By choosing to live for yourself, you actually become more valuable to others. A person who lives primarily for approval often grows resentful. They carry frustration. Their generosity comes with conditions. They become passive-aggressive. Their kindness operates like a loan with hidden costs. Relationships become burdened by expectations that are never stated. By contrast, someone who lives for themselves is internally stable. Their capacity is full. When they give, it is sincere, not forced. When they care, it comes from strength rather than dependence. A grounded, self-directed person provides structure. A person driven by approval becomes entangling. One supports, the other restricts. When you prioritize mental clarity, personal resources, and a defined purpose, you introduce stability into an unstable environment. Others rely on you not because you comply, but because you are consistent. Machiavelli noted that a leader must depend on his own strength. Only then can he offer protection. Dependence on others weakens both the individual and those connected to them. Children benefit from strength, not constant accommodation. Partners benefit from honesty, not perpetual agreement. Society benefits when individuals act authentically rather than replicating expectations. Living for yourself is not selfish. It removes false behavior. It eliminates forced positivity. It ends agreements made out of fear. It reduces the resentment that undermines families and partnerships. In its place, it introduces clarity. Truth may feel uncomfortable, but it is the only stable foundation. So the question remains, now that you understand the mechanism, now that you recognize the illusion of constant evaluation, now that you see both the cost of external approval and the value of restraint, what happens next? When this video ends, you will be offered another distraction. Something designed to redirect attention and restore habit. The system will attempt to pull you back into familiar patterns. The question is whether you accept it or pause. Look at your messages. Look at your obligations. Ask yourself who benefits from your attention. The exit has always been available. What kept you inside was the belief that independence meant loss. It does not. It leads to reality. Machiavelli articulated this centuries ago. He accepted the consequences of truth and continued regardless. The choice now is yours. Stepping forward requires tolerance for disapproval. It requires acceptance of misunderstanding. It requires commitment to action. If this perspective clarified something for you, understand that what is shared here is limited. Certain discussions cannot be presented openly without restriction. More detailed material exists elsewhere. If you choose to continue, subscribe if you have not already. Additional content is available through the Join option for those who want deeper analysis. Most will not pursue it. That distinction matters. The decision is yours.